Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph will begin Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis, the Mishnah at the bottom. So the Mishnah, Shisha Dvorim Asu Anshe Yericha. The people who lived in Yericha, they had 6 minhagim, 6 unusual minhagim. Al Shloisha Meicha B'Yadam. On 3, the Chachamim, they were Meicha, they made a Macha, they objected. Al Shloisha Loi Meicha B'Yadam. But in the other 3, they did not. And these are the ones where they did not make a macha. They would allow, the people would allow themselves to graft the palm trees the entire day, the 14th of Nisan, Erev Pesach, even in the afternoon, where a malach is also. They were matir to graft the trees, branches on the trees. So they're markivim to call him kolayim. We'll see in the Gemara why. The korachim es shema, they were wrapped shema. We'll see what that means. The Gemara will explain what that means. And they were cut and they would pile up, make piles of the grain before the aimer. Now on the new crop before they bring the korban aimer is chadash, it's also to eat it. And it's also to do katsira, to harvest any grain that was roy for the korban aimer. It was also to harvest it, to cut it down before the makar of the aimer. The aimer is reishis katsirchem. That has to be the first that you're kaitzim. So therefore, there is an isser to cut down any grain that is roy for the korban aimer. Now in Yericha, they lived in the valley, and the grain was inferior. It was inferior grain, so that was not brought for the korban aimer. So the katsira was mutter. Now they used to harvest it in Yericha, but they also were godshim. They also made piles of it. The Chachamim answered making piles because if you make a pile of it, you might come to eat from it. And eating is also before the Omer. But in Yericha, they didn't listen to that, and they were Kaitzim v'Gadshim, and the Chachamim, nevertheless, were not Maychem. And these are the 3 where the Chachamim did make a Macha, Matir Gamzia Shel Hektish. They allowed themselves to cut down from the trees of Hektish, the branches of Hektish. The people of Yericha, initially, they did the pruning of the trees. They did the pruning, they cut down the branches, the excessive branches. They were zomer the trees. And after they were zomer the trees, they were maktish those trees. The growth of the branches that grew, the additional growth, the new growth from that point on. So the people of Yericha used to cut that down and take it for personal use. They held it was not hektish. We'll see in the Gemara what the cheshbon was. But they held that it was mutter, so they would cut it down and use it for personal use. And on that, the chachamim were meichen. Another thing they did is that fruit that fell off a tree. So under a tree, the fruit that was lying under a tree, they used to eat that on Shabbos. And that's also, the Chachamim were meicha. Again, we'll see the cheshbon of the Gemara, but Neisim Peah LeYarek. And they used to leave Peah, the corner of the field for the Aniyim, from vegetables, they left it for the Aniyim. And that over there, these last 3 things, the Chachamim were meicha. Why were they meicha on the Yerek? Because they left it for the Ani. It seems to be a good thing. However, Peah is patur from Isis. Now, Yerek, there's no din Peah on Yerek. By leaving it to the Ani thinks that it's regular Peah. On Peah, there's no din of Tevel. There's no din of Hafrashas Maisras. And therefore, the concern is that the Aniyim will gather it up. They'll take it, thinking it has a din of Peah, and they're really going to be eating Tevel. Therefore, the Anshe Yericha are going to be machal them tevel, and therefore micha b'yadam chachamim. Zok the Gemara ton Rabbana. We learned in the Mishnah that there were 6 items, 3 the Chachamim were meicha and 3 they were not. Now we're going to list in the Brisa another 6 items at a different period of time, which also 3 that were agreed and 3 were disagreed with. Ton Rabbanan Shisha Dvorim also Chizkiyahu Melech. Chizkiyahu Melech did 6 things, 6
prominent things. Al shleisha hoidalo v'ashleisha loy hoidalo. And for 3 of them, they were agreed with, and 3 they did not agree with. What are these items? Ger, Atzmois, Avival Mita Shalavolin. Chizkiyahu Melech was a great tzaddik. His father was a terrible Rosh Achaz. And he, at the time of, after Achaz was nifter, he did not treat him with the Kavod Malachim. And because he wanted to, because of Kavod HaTorah, Kavod Rabbeinu Shalom, he wanted to demonstrate that Achaz was a Rasha. So instead of burying him and giving a kfura of Malachim, he dragged, it says literally dragged his bones, the Forshim say means he dragged the mace, he dragged them on instead of putting him into a mita of Malachim, of Kavod, on the mita shel chavolim, of ropes. And something that was very degrading, instead of giving the kavod of malachim, and the Chum agreed with that. Another thing that he did was kitas nachash hanacheshes. The nachash hanacheshes, the Moshe Rabbeinu made, that if a person had a snake bite, he would look up to it and look up towards Shemaim, and he would get healed. He crushed it. He crushed it and he destroyed it because the people were making it into an avodah zarah. So therefore, he crushed the nachash hanacheshes, and they agreed with that. Gana sefer refuas v'haidolo. Another thing that he did was he hid the book of refuas. There was a book that had different refuas, and people would get sick, would use these remedies, and they'd get cured immediately. And therefore, the people did not, when they were sick, they did not do tshuva and to be mispaled properly and have the proper humility, and they relied immediately on the refuas and the sefer refuas, and therefore he hid it. And the chachamim, they agree with that as well. But on 3 other items, they did not agree with it. What was that? He cut down, literally means he cut down the doors of the base of Mikdash and sent that to the Melech of Asher. The doors were lined with gold, and when Melech Asher in Syria, they put a heavy tax, or they demanded a heavy fine on King Chizkiyahu, so that they should not attack. And Chizkiyahu therefore didn't have the money to do it, so he cut down, or he removed the gold that was covering the doors of the base of Mikdash, and he sent it to them. And the Chacham objected it because they shouldn't have used the doors of the base of Mikdash for that purpose. So they did not agree with that. Another thing that he did was also he stopped up the waters of the Gichan, on the upper Gichan, and they did not agree. They did not agree to them. So this was when the Assyrians were Asher were going to attack, and therefore, as he knew of the imminent attack, therefore he stopped up the rivers so that the waters would not flow, so that they would not have the water. However, they didn't agree to him because the pasuk says that the Rabbeinu Shem said that he'll protect the city, that he's going to protect the city, and therefore he should not have been concerned about that, and he should have relied on the Rabbeinu Shalom. The other thing that he did was Ibr Nisan ben Nisan v'loi hoyraloi. He made an Ibr month, so the Chizkiyahu Melech he would galvanize the people to be makar the Korban Pesach. There was during the time of Achaz, his father, the Rasha, people there was much avodah zarah and laxity in the observance of the mitzvahs. Chizkiyahu Melech was machzor on the tshuva, but he saw that this was right after, the year after his father Achaz died, that the people were not yet Torah, they were not prepared for Pesach, so it was already Nisan, and he made an Ibr year. Now, you can't make an Ibr year when already it's Nisan. You have to do it before the month of Nisan already is declared. And in this case, it was already Nisan, and and he made a second Adar and then pushed off and made it Ibrayur, and he made off, pushed off the month of Nisan and a month for the Korban Pesach, for the Chag of Pesach. And the Gemara darshans that he doesn't mean that he also knew the Drasha Chodesh Lachem, but he did it on the 30th day of Adar. On the 30th day of Adar, the Gemara explains in Brachas that that's what he made. It was the 30th day of Adar, which could have been Nisan, and he made that into Adar Sheni. They did not agree with that. Coming back to the Mishnah, what's listed in the Mishnah by Anshe Yerichai, Ma'akiv in the Kol Yaim, they would graft, they do it hard cover, they'd graft palm trees the entire day of Erev Pesach. What did they do? Omar of Yehuda, Maisi Asa Dora, they would bring a fresh hadas, Veshichra the Daphna, and juice from the berries of a Daphna, a laurel tree. And barley flour that was kept in a vessel less than 40 days. He would boil these together, he'd boil all these ingredients together, and put it injected into the heart of the palm tree. In any tree that was in 4 amas of it, if they didn't give this injection, it would wither immediately. Meaning they made this injection, this concoction that would help stimulate the growth of the tree. So it wasn't mamish a grafting, but it's called that way because they put in a foreign substance into the tree, which would stimulate the growth. Other trees that were around it, so this would cause the tree to grow so vigorously that it would absorb the nutrients from the soil. The other trees around it, if they didn't have this injection, they would wither. Rav Acha, the Rav Amar, he said there was a difference from what they did. What they did was manche kufra de kufta. It was a different practice that they did. They would put literally a male branch into a female branch. I mean, it was the same min. It was not a different min. So therefore, there was no derisive problem of harkova, because it was the same min. But one was a male branch, a tree from a male one that produces fruit, into a female one, and that would cause the nekeva to produce fruit. So it would cause the nekeva to produce fruit because they grafted a zocher, a branch from a zocher, a tree, a palm tree that does produce the fruit. So there was no problem of grafting in either of these solutions. There was no problem of harkova per se. It wasn't harkova because either was an injection or it was from the same min. Nevertheless, they did it on Erev Pesach, and they did it even in the afternoon. It says they did it kol yom. So how could they do that? So the Slach explains that they had a cheshbon that it was a davar ovid if they didn't do it. And just like in a cholamoid, a davar ovid is mutter, this is also mutter. However, Chachamim did not agree with this. So another thing that they did was they wrapped the Shema. What did they do? Omar Rabbi Yehuda, Oimrim Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And they did not make a separation between the Shema Echad and Vahavta. Meaning, as the way Rashi explained it, is explained by the Bach, that we're marich be'echad. When we say echad, we're marich, and we have in mind, we have a machshava that we're makabel on ourselves all machal shamayim, we're meiser nefesh, we're makabel all machal shamayim, and therefore we, after echad, we pause, we delay. And then we say Vahavta. Vahavta is a tzivui. First there's a Kabbalah, and then there's a tzivui. And there's a tzivui to do the mitzvahs, to be mekayim the mitzvahs. So there has to be a separation, and they didn't make that separation. Rav Amar mafsikim hayu. He said they did. What was the problem? Where was it that they did not, that they were korchin, that they combined it, where they did not make a separation? Instead of making a separation and stop pausing and saying hayim, and then al levavecha, they read it together. The mashma, and the problem is the mashma yom al levavecha v'loy lemachar al levavecha, which is mashma that today it's on your heart, but not tomorrow, and therefore it's a mashma that it's only by hayom, by Maimon Har Sinai, and not in the future. So therefore, that was what the Ramach, they had to make a separation. It's hayom, it's av hayom, and because the commandment is today, but al levavecha, it is on your heart, but it's for the future as well. Ton Rabbanon Keitzari Yikorchem Es Shema Oimrim Shema Yisrael Hashem Lekenu Shem Echad V'lo Yam Mafsikin Divrei Mer. That's what Rameir says. Rav Yehuda Oimer Mafsikin Hayu. He said they were mafsik. Ela Shaloi Hayu Oimrim Baruch Shem Kivoyin Malchus Haloylam Voyin. But they didn't say Baruch Shem. That's what the problem was. Va'anan my time Armirale. And why Lamaisa? Why do we say this? The Parsha Baruch Shem. It's not in the Torah, it's not part of the Shema that the Torah brings down. Why do we say Baruch Shem between Shema and V'ahavta? Our answer is, K'ratoris Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Tam Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Vayikra Yaakov Elvana Vayomer Ha'asu V'agiru Lachem, Yaakov Avinu, before he died, he said, gather up and I will tell you what will occur to you, what will happen back for Sayamin. Bikesh Yaakov Legalos Levanav Kate Hayamin. Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal to his sons what would happen when, literally it means Kates Hayamin, when his right hand, after by the Churban, the right hand, which is the Kayach that fights the enemies of Klal Yisrael after the Churban, it was put to the back, it was withdrawn. And now he wanted to be revealed what will happen when the Kates Hayamin, when that withdrawal is over, when the right hand comes back, when the enemies of Klal Yisrael will be destroyed, when there will be the Geula Hasida. He wanted to reveal when that would be, but Vistalka Mimena Shechina, but the Shechina departed from him, and he was not able to tell them what would happen in the future. So when the Salska Shechina, Amar Hashem Chas v'Shalom Yesh b'mitzvasi psul, he said the Shechina departed. Perhaps that is because Chas v'Shalom in his descendants, they're from his children, somebody was possible. Kavram sheyasim min Yishmael, just like Avram who had a son that was possible Yishmael. V'Avi Yitzchak sheyasim min Esav, and his father Yitzchak had Esav. Amruloi Bonav, his general said to him, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So Shema Yisrael, that their father Yisrael, they said, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Kishem she'en belibcha el echad, kach ein belibenu el echad. Just like in your heart, it's Hashem is one. He is the one and only that is the Hashem is the ruler. So in our hearts, it's the same thing. So Yaakov Avinu said at that time, and he said, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchus Olam Void, that it's Baruch blesses the name of Hashem for all eternity, forever. So therefore, he says that he was Baruch Shem Kvoid. He heard that his mito was shlema, and it was for a different reason why he was not able to reveal what would happen in the future. So this is what he said. So they said, the son said Shema Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu said Baruch Shem. Now when we say Shema Yisrael, then there is a reasoning that we should say the same way that Yaakov Avinu said it. So Amri Rabbanan, but the Rabbanan said, Hey Chinav, what should we do? Now, Amrina, should we say Baruch Shem, Elo Yamar Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it. It's not in the Torah. It's not part of Shema. Eloi Nemru not say it at all. Amru Yaakov Avinu did say it. So he's kinu shu Amr Moshe B'chashai. So the takana was to say it quietly. Amr Rabbi Yitzchak, Amr Rabbi Ame, Mashal Abbas Melech She'eri Chatzikir Kader. So what is this a marshal to? It's a marshal to the daughter of a king, so that she smelled the tafshel that was cooking, and it had very good spices, and she smelled it, and she had a desire for it. It smelled so good, and she wanted to eat it. Now, Bas Melech, royalty, it's beneath their dignity to say, oh, I want this food. to show that they have a craving for something. They're supposed to be above that. So, if she says that she wants to eat it, yesh l'ganai, then it's an embarrassment for her. Loi taimar, she doesn't say anything, yesh l'tzar, then she's suffering because she has a craving for it. So so the servants realized what was happening, and secretly they brought it to her. Here also is that we have a desire to say it, we can't express it openly. We can't so express it openly, so we say it quietly. We say it therefore quietly, meaning that we have a desire to say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Elohim V'ed. We have a desire to express how glorious the name of Hashem is, and it's for all eternity. We can't say it because we are, so to speak, it's not offered to us. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it, so we have a craving, a desire to say it, but Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it as part of Shema. We can't say it, so we say it quietly, meaning we don't express it openly, but quietly we say it because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't command us to say it. We want to say it, we say it quietly. Now the Mefarshim say, they speak out that on Yom Kippur, where there's a gil of the Shechina is more revealed. There we say it even openly. He says, now it was made to say quietly, but at a later date, they're misaken to say it in a loud voice. Why is that? Because of what the minim, the apikarsim, they're what they said quietly. Meaning, we said Baruch Shem quietly. The minim who are apikarsim, they said their minos, they said it, they murmured it quietly. So because of that, at that point they were misaken to say it out loud. But, however, in the hardod, like a minim, in the hardod, that there are no minim, ad hashta amele b'chashoy, they still say it quietly, and this is how we're knowing we say it quietly. Tanarabanan, Shisha Devar Maso, and Sheiricha, 6 practices they did on Sheiricha, Shleisha B'Tzein Chachamim, Shleisha Shalei B'Tzein Chachamim. Now, the way this version reads is 3 was with the according to the wishes of the Chachamim, and 3 that were not according to the wishes. But it says 3 of this that according to the wishes, meaning they were happy with it. Ve'elu b'Tzein Chachamim, and these are the ones that were according to the wishes of the Chachamim, markivim the kolim kol hayom, ve'karachem as Shema, ve'kaisim lifnei ha'omer, and they used to cut and harvest before the omer. Ve'elu shalei b'Tzein Chachamim, goychim lifnei ha'omer, they used to stack it up together lifnei ha'omer. Or parsim par pirtzais begagayseim upaydasayim, and they used to make the openings in there in the fences of their gardens lahachal neshel aniyim b'shnei b'tzaros, in order to give the fruit that falls down during the years of the b'tzaros of famine, so that the aniyim can come and eat the fruit that falls down b'shabbosim v'yom tovim, even though it was Shabbos and Yom Tov. So they open up these openings in the fences that the anim should eat it, even though, and allow them to collect it even on Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Not that they made the openings on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but the anim collected the fruit on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Matir gamzi shel hektish shel chorov shel shikma, and they cut down the growth of the charuvim, of the boxer trees, the carob trees, and sycamore trees that belonged to hektish, but the part that grew, the extension that grew, they cut down for the personal use. That's the way Rab Meir's version is. Rabbi Yehuda said to him, your version is, it was according to the wishes of the Chachamim. He says, if you say, if it was according to the wishes of the Chachamim, you call on a Masechet, so let everybody do it. Ella, no, nothing was according to the wishes of Chachamim. Nothing was something that they agreed with. In all of the 6 cases were things that the Chacham disagreed with. But what's the correct version? 3 they objected to. The other 3, it was not according to their wishes, but they didn't object to it. But none of them were according to their wishes. These are the 3 that they did not object to. Markivim the Kol Yom, they would graft the palm trees the entire day of Erev Pesach. They would combine the Shema, wrap the Shema, and they would harvest and they would pile it up before the bringing of the Omer. And these are the ones that they objected to. They would cut off for their own personal use the growth of the Harav and Shikma, the carob and the sycamore trees. Apart same process, they would make openings in their fences of their gardens and orchards, so that the poor could eat during the famine years. Nice and and they also left Peah for Yerk. And the Chomim objected to it. In the next moment, the Gemara will discuss these items.